Seriously, I mean it. Only in fucking Canada.
What's the point of this walkway? No, I'm serious. What's the point of it? It starts over here. Down from... well, basically the end. Over here at the end of this... almost walled off community. Starts over here on the other side of this fence, just below the concrete staircase. Goes around, and it goes just over there, and then it bends back around into the friggin' housing units. Like, it's very clear that whoever built this, whatever land developing company was charged with laying this stone foundation to secure, I guess, well, just the dirt underneath here so it didn't obviously fall into this area. Well, what's the point of it? Pointless. I mean, it looks like it's just a small, well, look, judging by over there, where there isn't any sort of dugout part of the land, and it's just, well, it's just still intact for the most part. It wasn't that steep of a hill crest. So they didn't need to dig it out. They could have just let it extend to the edge of where the housing is. And I'm sure they could have done without this massive, wide bit of parking. Sure, they could have made do with what was over there. So yeah. Pseudo fucking segregation. It's... So, I'm in the town of Thurso, Quebec. Already. Now, let me explain. So, in the last video I uploaded, I was in that bus station in Gatineau to try and see if I could actually catch a bus, whether provincial wide traveling, or one of the city buses that went as far as the town of Maison-Angers. I could not. Long story short, Party B would not fit on any of the buses by the company that, the main city company, which I'll talk more about in a sec, that bus company. So I started walking with all my things, heading eastbound in Gatineau, through, as you'll see in the clips for this, into the Templeton district. And I made it there. I slept the night in the Templeton district at a park that, was in yet again a rather bourgeois area, but anyway. Today, when I packed up my things and got moving, a car stopped beside me on the main road that I was walking along, and they asked if I was alright, and I said I was, and just where I was going, because they questioned the extensive amount of luggage in Cardi B, and I told them I'm headed on foot towards Thurso, and they were like, "What? No, I don't want you walking all that way on foot. Please let me take you, if it's possible to fit any of this stuff into my car." And I at first was saying, "Oh, no, it's all right. I think I should be fine," because they were asking, they asked if I wanted a ride, but eventually they convinced me that it should fit in the car, and they really wanted to give me a ride. They didn't want to let me just wander through the countryside all the way to Thurso, even though it was just following the main road that turned into the main highway, or country road / highway. You just follow it straight from Gatineau all the way to Thurso. But either way, they convinced me, and so I unloaded my stuff from my cart. We had to rearrange things in their car, and I had to dismantle Cardi B a bit, just so that they'd fit, because they're fatter than all hell. No, I'm just kidding, Cardi B. You're a healthy weight for your mental mass. I don't know what humanistic element I was trying to compare you to there. Anyway. So, yeah, I got a ride here, and I wasn't even hitchhiking yet. I had started somewhat when I was in Templeton, trying to hitchhike within the suburbs going out towards the edge of the city. That obviously nothing came about that. So yeah, and we got a little here's the thing, we got a little turned, we went the wrong direction first. They put in the wrong coordinates in the GPS, and so we were headed initially to Clarence Rockland, a town in Ontario that is on the opposite side of the Ottawa River, just down this road. That there's actually a ferry system that runs between Thurso and Clarence Rockland. So we went all the way back to where, if any of you saw my second part of exploring Gatineau, we went all the way back to where I had been sleeping at the edge of Byward Market in Ottawa for the 2 days that I was there, and after I had made my whole journey all the way, that took 3 days to get there from Orleans in Ottawa. So, and I literally just backtracked through the whole 4-ish days of progress that I had made through Gatineau in 1 hour. So that kind of made my whole walking feel a little pointless. But, regardless. Anyway. Oh, that really just puts it in perspective for me. Anyway. Okay, so we then got back on the right track, going into Quebec, out of Gatineau. We went through Maison-Angers to a neighboring, I actually don't know if it's a small town or regarded as just as a large village, but Buckingham is what it's called, which is where they live with their family. And then we made it, almost ran into that sign, as I wasn't paying attention. We made it to Thurso. And sadly, right in smack in the center, there's already an assault on my ocular senses. So if you can see here, we got one giant eyesore, a not as giant but big enough eyesore, and then oh yeah, okay, also, and I just took notice of that, another eyesore. And then, can you see it from here? Oh, you can somewhat see it. Lean out a bit. Another eyesore, a big one. So yeah. So yeah, that's not fun to see. But anyway, I want to talk about the actual trip here. I want to talk about this person that I met. So obviously, as we were driving, we were talking, and I got to know them. They told me about how they'd been living in Canada since 2009, and they had come here as an international student for post-secondary schooling from Burkina Faso, where they initially lived and are from. And they're from the capital of God, I always forget how to say it completely. Ouagadougou, I believe, is the proper way to say the capital's name. Ouagadougou. They're from the capital city of Burkina Faso. And they were telling me about their life experience and how, in many regards of what I'm doing now, they had always wanted to travel, and how they were incredibly happy to leave their homeland for a while to actually get more further experience out in the world, and how they had never really gotten along with some of their family members, especially their father, who was a military official, and, well, how it was they had many issues with them. And they shared their perspectives on life with me, and, well, they had been studying here as well to become go into the healthcare field for medical work. And I believe they were studying pharmacology, specifically to become a pharmacologist, to some degree. Or at the very least, well, they said they were studying bits and pieces within their post-secondary schooling of different programs, but I believe it was specifically pharmacology that they were initially taking in terms of systemic academic study. And we had a lunch together at a small business restaurant just down the road a ways here in the town. And, well, all I can say is I'm incredibly thankful that I met them. They were incredibly generous and incredibly empathic and incredibly attentive and just all around incredibly caring. And without me even sharing, even first in the car ride, my own worldviews and perspectives and opinions, I got to know that their viewpoints coincided in some form with realizations I've come to along these travels so far, especially in alignment with my theories that I've created. And it's also, I'm also incredibly grateful that I met them, considering the fact that, well, how do I put this? At points, no, not even at points. Most often at every time of every day. In the majority, no one in any close proximity, even those who I greatly admire, friends of mine who I consider to be highly intelligent and things of the sort, and are very they attempt to try and understand what I'm talking about in whatever it is I'm, saying in regards to the topic. But I know that most people don't have a single clue what the hell I'm yammering on about. They don't. And if they do, they don't really, they're not very good at displaying that they know. To some degree. And that's not and I'm not saying that as like their fault in a majority. I'm not saying that these people don't listen, that they're not trying, that most of the people that I'm talking about don't try to listen and try to actually gain an understanding of my perspective. I'm not saying that. I think many of them do. There are those that don't, but many do, at least who are within my interpersonal life. But even so, that doesn't negate the fact that it's still just to some degree seems to fall on deaf ears. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sort of way, but it falls on, oh, you know what the fuck I mean. But this person, they agreed with a lot of my suspicions of the world. I'll put it that way. Especially in regards to what we talked about for a minute, about how performative a lot of, the governmental figures and high corporate entities are. And in terms of advertisement, they even brought up a certain advertisement that's common here in Canada in regards to its performative in terms of psychological health. And which is what I would refer to in that regard. It's in that regard for that type of advertisement and, commercial production. I refer to that as neo-commercialist advertism. So it relates to that. And they basically talked about how this there's a whole within this commercial. It's advertised that the Canadian healthcare system is very caring and wants to help support those struggling with psychological illness, and the whole "we're all in this together" mentality, which is true, except they don't fucking believe it. The people in corporate entities behind these the systematic and systemic entities behind that type of manipulative advertising and marketing. So what they said, we're all in this together, and that we should, how they talked about how this commercial was preaching this and how psychological health should be destigmatized. And yet when they talk about mental illness, at, say, work or something, or just in general to those that they're maybe somewhat acquainted with, they get stigmatized, they get subtle prejudice directed towards them. There's no amount of actual genuinely beneficial resources given to people struggling with these issues, and no one actually fucking acknowledges the fact that things like this are the goddamn reason for so much of psychological and physiological illnesses and disorders spreading rapidly throughout the globe. No one, how these corporate entities are so fucking oblivious. Well, they're either, okay, no. Many of them aren't oblivious. They know it, and they have psychological illnesses themselves, as far as I'm concerned. Most of those executives of these economic enterprises, and also politicians, police officers, or those in high policing and militant command, in the educational systems, most of them are sociopaths. They're egocentrics as well. They're histrionics. This in terms of personality disorders. Many of them suffer from internalized depression, as far as I'm concerned. And many of them have domineering behavioral disorder, and many are also very, obviously dismissive behavioral too. But anyway, and also many of them, those who actually believe for the okay, I don't know. Hold on. Okay, sorry, I didn't know if someone was actually calling out to me for whatever reason, or someone was just, calling out for another reason. I don't know. Okay. Point being, a large majority of them know what they're doing. And many of them, I would actually be fair to say, know that they have these psychological illnesses, or they, at the very least, know that in psychology, what is described as being, or diagnosed as being, these psychological illnesses, disorders that are not innate to human nature, that are not proper, normal functioning human emotional health. They know that what is described there vaguely or outright describes them, and they just don't fucking care. They don't bother to look at it. And then the other half, there's people who are also psychologically ill, who are psychologically ill as well, and have been traumatized to some extent, or just have become normalized to said societal trauma within their interpersonal lives, and they have been indoctrinated into believing that working for these systems actually is beneficial, or they have a way to get in and hopefully change it to some degree, or they think that working within the system and its policies is going to help fix the system, even though its fucking policies are what is polluting the communities that it affects. So half of them know, the other half are oblivious because of indoctrination. And in their opinion, it's getting worse. They believed, and this is someone who's trying to get into the regulated healthcare system in some way, or at least studying it in an academic setting, they agreed with, well, obviously I didn't say it first, but they just said it, and I agree with their stance, and in turn they agree with my stance, that it's not getting better, it's getting worse. Now, I don't want that to sound I don't want that to sound pessimistic at all, because I'm not a pessimist. I hate the philosophy of pessimism, as I've discussed before. But obviously, I don't believe that it can't get better. I don't know how. I have absolutely no clue how. But I think it's idiotic to say that it can't in some way, at the very least, get better. So I don't want this to come off as like not optimistic that it can't get better by nature, which is completely untrue as far as I've seen. But the sad reality is it's not getting better. It hasn't been getting better for decades, for centuries, in terms of societies across the globe. These sociological issues and sociocultural issues, economic issues, governmental things, all things of the sort, they're getting worse. They've been getting worse for a very, very long time. And, well, their advice that their perspectives that they shared, and me talking with them, and just how they were as a person in terms of their whole psychological makeup, well, it's given me a lot of hope. It's in just this one day. Like, I'm standing in Thurso, Quebec right now. I did not expect to make it to this town this quickly. I did not expect someone to actually pick me up this quickly in terms of a vehicle ride. I did not expect in the slightest it to happen without me attempting to hitchhike at all. So, well, all I can say is meeting them has made the world a lot brighter for me. Oh, and I didn't state this in in the scientific proposal video, part 6, that I uploaded. I've made an update. It's a small update, but I think it's a warranted one, to the percentile rate in relation to my theory of globalized social paranoia. How vast it is in terms of how many people in the world it affects, to a large extent. I've risen in terms of my implementations in neuroscience, the percentile from being 1 in 2 people suffering from some form of social paranoia to 1 in 3 people suffering from 1 in 3 people suffering from some form of social paranoia. I know, big difference, but, well, I mean, yeah, it is a big difference to some degree, but yeah, regardless, I feel that it needed to be risen a bit. It still exists, widespread, absolutely. That hasn't been debunked in the slightest in the short time since I've come up with the theory. But if anything, it's been reiterated to me in a multitude of regards. But it's, in terms of how it overall manifests, I think it just, and how much it affects people overall, it's not 1 in 2, it's 1 in 3. It's more accurate for the global populace. And on that regard, I'll quickly talk about how, when I talk about these things, I'm not exempt from them. When I talk about my theory of the paradox of existence, or how I further outlined whatever the beliefs that were somewhat outlined before with it, by different people, and or like how I feel that we are all hypocrites, sadly, to a large, large, large extent, and I have no good answer to that. I'm not excluded from that, as I believe I said in my 12th part of exploring Ottawa. I'm not exempt from that. And I'm not, in terms of, I suffer from social paranoia as well. I'm not exempt from that either, and I've been trying to break that ever since I've come to realize it, these things. I've been trying to smile more at just everyday people, like, whilst walking about, just going like, and just actually, you know, as I pass people, looking others in the eye. Here's a genuine thing, for those of you who want to test my theory of globalized social paranoia for yourselves. Go out walking and actually try and look people in the eyes as you pass and see their reaction. Especially in the large cityscapes of the world. Walk past them, look them in the eye, don't break eye contact when they actually look back at you, and see if they just go and like look away immediately, or they don't, they maybe out of the corner like glance and then they just keep looking forward, or if they have their phone in hand, they just immediately look down at their phone and they keep on just passing by you. Or if they genuinely lock eyes with you and they maybe just keep like more of a puzzled face, or maybe more of an, I guess, I don't want to say intimidate, maybe they're just having a resting face in terms of facial expression, but just take notice of it, try it. And if you are afraid to do that out of what their reaction may be, and if you're thinking, okay, well, what if they get the wrong impression, well, then that's social paranoia for yourself. So that also on your end can confirm that theory of mine to you. If you actually feel that. If you think, well, what if they get the wrong impression, in terms of personality-wise, histrionic tendencies. If you're afraid of making them feel uncomfortable or things of the sort. Paranoia. Fear of that. So you can confirm it for yourself from just your own perspective. If you actually feel that. So I've been trying to break that, and it's slow, it's gradual, and I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where it's remitted to a large extent psychologically, but I'm trying. And the same thing as I also with my theory of passion-related internalized aggression, which I talked about in its pre. There's a lot of cars at this intersection for this small town. In its pre-formed conceptual version back when I was in part 10 of exploring Ottawa, how I also suffer from internalized aggression, internalized aggressive behavioral disorder, anger, severe, like out of not abnormal amounts of aggression. And as far as I'm concerned, in terms of percentile-wise, what did I label it as? I believe, yeah, I think I put it as, I need to check again, but between 1 in 5 and 1 in 6 people suffer in the world from internalized aggression. And it specifically manifests most often in relation to things that they are, in terms of things that they're often philosophically and ideologically passionate about, or just interest-wise, they are very, very passionate about. And I'm not exempt from that either. As I just said, I suffer from it, and I'm trying to do my best to mitigate it. But that's all I can do. So I am very thankful that I met this person. They told me as well, they said, I'm going to give you my phone number and
my partner's phone number, and if you ever need anything, do not hesitate at all to call us. It doesn't matter where you are in Canada or where you are that we can reach you. We will rush to you, especially within Quebec. We will come to you, and it doesn't matter, just give us your position and wait there, and we will come get you, and you can crash at our place for however amount of time. And they said, I hope I see you again one day, Cam, and if you ever come to my place, I will cook you, or we'll cook you, there'll be a lot of Burkina Faso food to eat, which I'd be very happy to have if I was to ever come to their place. But sadly right now I'm moving on to, well, trying to get up to Laval. I'll also address quickly something here that I found out, further research actually while here in Thurso, about the very much, in terms of its societal structuring, corrupt city of Gatineau, Quebec. At the station I was standing at in the last video, the bus station, and while I was in my exploring Gatineau videos, exploring the downtown, if any of you bother to take notice, and maybe it's visible to some degree, there was, especially the row of businesses that are very much set up in terms of the leasing spaces, it seems, for pseudo-segregation. There, by the train tracks, if you go back in the videos and watch them, I don't remember specifically, well, I didn't really pay attention to what specific parts, but if you skim through them and find them, one of the few times maybe I'd actually recommend you skim through my videos, you may see there's a road right by the main road that ran through the downtown area of Gatineau. Well, that road is owned by a bus transit company called STO, Société de Transportation de la Ottawa, I believe is the name of it in Quebecois French. They are a mega transport company that the entire city of Gatineau pretty well relies upon for public transportation. And that road is completely owned by them. And that road, which is called the Respect-Bus corridor. It's either Respect-Bus or Respect-Bus corridor. It runs all the way from the lower end of Hull, the Hull district of Gatineau, to the edge, or like the very easternmost half of Lac Beauchamp in Gatineau. And they've bought up the entire thing. They own it. And I actually researched into the company, and apparently either the road was built, either it was completed in the mid-2000s, or the actual, and then the company purchased it, or the road was completed long before, and in the mid-2000s they actually purchased it, the entire thing. And if so, then it just used to be a road that also ran through downtown Gatineau. Well, looked into them further. They run what's called a rapid bus service, transport system. Basically, on this one stretch of road, which they own, only their vehicles are allowed, and it's like non-stop go, 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 and they just circle around basically on this entire road. And they also have, obviously, legal provisions within their own, in connections to the municipal transport ministry, which they have high connections to, obviously. They're allowed to go just on the regular roads throughout the city. As I'm sure you saw in my videos, you can see they're hybrid. They have the buses called hybrid. They're a mix. They're a gas and electric powered as a backup of vehicles. That's their buses, and they run all through the city. And they even run some of them into Ottawa from downtown Gatineau to mainly downtown Ottawa by the Canadian Parliament. Probably for any amount of tourism. But basically, you may think, okay, Cam, I know you hate most of the sociologic systems of the world, but what's exactly your point here? What's wrong with this? I mean, what's the point that you're trying to get across? We kind of already know that most cities, major metropolitan areas, have their own public bus system. They have their own public transit route. What's the point here? The point is, that's exactly the thing. They're not a public transit route or a transit system. They're not. They're a private one. I looked into so in Ottawa has a public transit route called Transpo, or OC Transpo, and that's not a but the way it operates, it basically is. But in terms of legal logistics and in terms of company privatization, it's not a privatized company. It's run through the city, the Ottawa Municipal Transportation Ministry. It's headed by them. So a branch of the city government, at least from everything I've researched about it. And same can go with, say, in Toronto, the TTC. The TTC is a public transport system headed by the Ministry of Transportation of Toronto. Separate from, say, a private transport company like Go Transit. You know, the Go Train, whatever Go buses they have, the Go stations, that's a private company that the city heavily relies on because they're a mega transport company for Toronto. But anyway, so things like the TTC for Toronto and for Ottawa, for OC Transpo, are public, governmentally organized and run city bus transport systems. Well, for Gatineau, from everything I looked up, they don't technically have one. Or at the very least, this company, STO, basically is their public transport system. And it's a private company. It's so huge. The company has so much influence within the Ministry of Transportation, apparently, for Gatineau, and how extensive their services have become in terms of what they've been able to be granted legal provisions for, in terms of their route operation and where they can actually buy up land to put their stations. It's all throughout the major parts of the city, And basically, I guess whenever I forget when the company was founded, but they expansionized so much that they don't. I guess the city just was like, fuck it, we don't need a transport system. They'll do it. And it's also convenient considering the CEO of, the current CEO of STO, I think her name is fucking Lynn Elfault? Lynn Elfault? Whatever her name is, I forget right now. She's highly corrupt from everything I've looked up about her. Highly corrupt. Obviously, with what I'm pointing out here. Well, fucking... Basically... the entire city runs off in terms of needed whatever transportation is needed or used in terms of the public sector. Well, this private company, STO, just is it. It just has a hold on the entirety of it. And if they were to stop operation, and people needed, like, if they were to stop operation and people were still functioning in the way society is functioning today, in terms of the city structuring, in terms of public transport, it would be chaos. If the company had to either shut down or, like, if they just had to stop operations for a day. So, yeah, that just shows their influence. And again, given everything I learned about Gatineau from being there for such a short amount of time, and the absolute capitalist hellscape that the downtown area is, well, I can't say that I'm surprised, again. Well, okay, no, for that one, I'm a little baffled that I'm obviously, that's baffling to me. It's literally, I thought that was the public transport system run by the city. Basically, so what I'm saying is, with how much influence this company has over the actual transportation public sector, how it affects the public sector, well, it basically is the transport ministry of Gatineau. And it obviously, from what I looked up, when they were actually talking about whatever was going on with either the purchasing of this one road for their operations, or if the building of it, if they actually funded building for it, or the finishing of it and then purchasing the road, whatever one. Apparently, way back when they were involved, the Gatineau municipal government was involved, the Québec provincial government was involved with putting in funding for this road for whatever reason, and it cost apparently the provincial reserve for funding and it was given, wouldn't you know, towards this company, which then in turn also absolutely has, from what I looked up, funded the municipal government, so lobbyists, and I'm sure they funded the provincial government as well with the profit that they've generated from the absolute monopoly and grip they have on the friggin' public transport system. I shouldn't keep calling it public transport, it's private. The transport system of the city. They literally, well, the cost of it apparently was, if the information I read was correct, $150 million for the road. For the road only. The road. Not whatever else they were doing. Cost $100. And this road, it expands a long way. But it's not like it's a highway. It's not like it's something like, it's not like it's expansive across, say, the province of Quebec. I would somewhat, with how much with the idiotic amount that the federal and provincial governments pour into unnecessary things for communal service that don't actually help the community. fine, I wouldn't be surprised by that number maybe for, say, a highway that was being built domestic provincially, or even like trans-provincially within the country, or trans-territorially, where they could actually build in the north of Canada, where they could build further roadways. I maybe wouldn't be as surprised by that. $150 million for this one road within one city for this bus company. Like, compared to a highway, it's not a long road. Not a long road at all. So, yeah, oh, and I wouldn't be surprised if the CEO, Lynn, herself of STO, and a multitude of other executives at the transport company that are that are high up, I wouldn't be surprised if they lived in Whistle Blue, that the neighborhood that I explored, full of elitists and mass ultra-rich folk. So, yeah, Gatineau is a severely corrupt city, severely. Like, it's the most corrupt city I've seen, like, in Canada that I've traveled to so far, and out of all of my research for a multitude of other major cities, or places within Canada, wow, it's highly corrupt. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say for that. Made it to Thurso, and I'm just gonna explore around the town, and then down there by the river I'm probably gonna set up camp for the night. This hotel across the road here, which is also a nightclub, I asked if I inquired about pricing for one night, but apparently they do it for, you have to book ahead of time. And apparently I just learned through talking and looking it up, well, talking with people in there and then looking it up, I just learned what in the hospitality industry is typically actually what the difference is most often for naming an establishment a hotel and a motel. So apparently most often motels are just well, housing, well, yeah, shelter housing, stay-in housing units that basically are, you can just basically book them when you get there, and you can, and they're usually, and it's if that truck will ever pass, and most often it's just for one day or one night that you typically, at least in most standard North American hospitality operations, you stay one night and then you have to pay again for the next night, and things of the sort. And again, you can book right there. But for hotels, it's you have to pre-book, book ahead of time before your arrival. Most often, I do think there are places that classify, that consider themselves hotels, that you don't have to do that, but that's a major staple of it apparently. And also, you can stay multiple nights on your one bill for what you paid. So yeah, I just learned that differentiation, or what's typically the differentiation between a hotel and a motel. Okay, I'm going to explore around here now, and then tomorrow get moving on to, hopefully, if I can make it, Papineauville, Quebec. Okay, goodbye.